Beruchim Animsaim. Is it on? Let's see. Beruchim Animsaim B'Shem Hashem Kahal Kadosh. It's okay. It's on. Yeah. It's a big zechut for myself to be here tonight at an event in memory of Victor Shem Tov, Zichrono Livracha. I truly believe that there is close to nothing better to do for the elevation of his soul, to get together in his home that he built, such a beautiful home with such beautiful furnishings. But the people obviously that live in the home are more beautiful. To come here tonight and say some Divrei Torah le'ilun nishmato. And mitzvot are contagious, as we know. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. That we could also spend some tzedakah to support the yeshiva Sharei Torah, my alma mater. I want to just congratulate the committee for all their hard work that they're doing in order to fund the yeshiva. I don't know too many yeshivas that have surplus. It seems what the Hafetz Chaim said many years ago, that one of the barometers to tell if a yeshiva is a real yeshiva, you look at its spreadsheet. If they're losing money, then you know it's the legitimate, it's the real thing. If they're making money, then you have to be concerned about it, and something's fishy about it. I'd like to point out that all the colleges, Harvard University has a surplus. V'hamevin yavin. In any event, although the hour is late, I would just like to say over a thought that I shared over with some of the fellows on the bus today, in the Torah bus. I was so excited about this thought that in the middle of our shiur of the Daf Yomi, which is a very regimented, disciplined class where we don't allow ourselves to digress because we have to fill a certain quota within a certain time frame, so there's really no room for peripheral ideas or digression. But because I felt the idea was so vital to the subject we were talking about, so I stopped. And just looking at the reaction from the people, stopping in the middle of the daf, some musar, manishtana. So I just like to repeat the idea that I said over today. Bobby, you heard it once. Maybe you could say it. With your permission, Bobby.
Rabbi, not the question.
You're the new question. There's a fantastic midrash, fantastic. When I read this midrash and get its conclusion, I say to myself, I'm sure that every midrash is steeped with lessons like this. It's just that maybe I don't have the ability to extract it. But when you find the midrash and you understand it and you can pull out a life-saving concept, so then it's not the exception, it's the rule. Every midrash is like this, but this is one that we could really, we can see it. The midrash is on a pasuk. Pasuk in Mishle, actually. The pasuk says, Hazita ish mahir b'melachto, lifnei melachim yityasav. It says, if you see a man diligent at his work, rest assured this man one day will stand before kings. King Solomon was extolling the virtues of people that are diligent, that are not lazy, that are industrious. And he said, if you see a man that's driven and he works hard, rest assured he will reach great places. Even he'll be rubbing elbows with the king. Lifnei melachim yityasab. He will stand in front of the king. So the Midrash comes and tells a story. The Midrash says, Al tekre melachim, ela malachim. Don't read it that he'll rub elbows with kings, mortal kings, but he'll rub elbows with malachim, with angels. It seems industriousness could lead even to an experience with angels. How? Ma'aseh Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa Shera'a b'nei Iro ma'alim nedarim v'nedabot l'Yerushalayim. It seems it was holiday time in Jerusalem, and all the Jewish people used to make a pilgrimage 3 times a year to Jerusalem on the holidays. As I've said many times, in the olden days there was only one Passover trip, and that was to Jerusalem. You maybe had some guys go to Puerto Rico, but the main trip was in Jerusalem. God will bring back the old minhag. So everybody was bringing their sacrifices. Thousands of Jews, everyone's walking with animals. And the Hanina ben Dosa sees this guy's bringing fulfilling a vow, and the other guy's making a donation. So he said, Amar hakol ma'alim l'Yerushalayim nedarim v'nedavot ve'ani eni ma'ale davar. He says, I'm not bringing anything. It seems that Hanina ben Dosa was a very poor man, and he couldn't afford even an animal, so he felt left out. He says, it's not fair. They're all able to praise God through sacrifices, and what's going to be with me? I want to be represented in Yerushalayim as well. So the Midrash says, Ma'asa, what did he do? Yatz'a lemidbara shel Iro. So he went to the fields, to the desert of his city. V'ra'a sham even achat. So he saw a stone, a big rock. Now I'm sure all of you have seen the magnificent Jerusalem stones, the white, beautiful stones of Jerusalem. And you've also noticed that some of those stones, those rocks, can be very, very heavy. As a matter of fact, if you paid attention at the Western Wall, at the Kotel, you have some of the biggest rocks and stones in the world. If you went in the caves, you'll see the biggest rock that was quarried in the world. It's maybe 60 feet long and 30 feet high. It's an amazing thing. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa goes to the rock quarry, and he says, listen, it's free. He brought his chisel, he brought his hammer with him. He said, I can't afford an animal, but I'll chisel the rock. And now he had a dilemma. After he chiseled the rock and he prepared it, he says, how in the world am I going to get this rock to Jerusalem? It seems he wanted to donate it to the Beit HaMikdash. Maybe they'll use it as a cornerstone. Maybe they'll put it in the building. This was his dilemma now. How do you transport the rock? Mind you, you didn't have FedEx and UPS and courier services. How do you take a rock like that size? Certainly, the Hanina ben Dosa is in no position to carry such a rock. So the Midrash goes on to say, Yatsa levakesh l'skor lo po'alim. Hire workers. V'nizdamna lo hamisha b'nei adam. All of a sudden 5 guys surface. Amar lahem, so the rabbi tells them, Ma'alim li atem even zul Yerushalayim? Could you help me bring the rock to Jerusalem? Amru lo, so right away they tell him, Ten lanu 50 sila'im. Give us 50 coins. V'anu ma'alim ota Yerushalayim. It's nothing for free over here. We're not, they weren't volunteers, these guys. They're workers. But it seems they put a very hefty price. So the Hanina ben Dosa says 50 coins. If I had 50 coins, I wouldn't be here mining a rock out of the quarry. I'd be bringing korbanot to Jerusalem. I can't afford 50 coins. These guys were not in the mood to negotiate and haggle and start back and forth. They said, listen, this is the price. You're interested, we'll move the rock for you. You're not interested, leave us alone. It's not the Arab market over here where we're going to start fighting over shekalim. So he says, no, you're dismissed. I can't afford it. And Rabbi Hanina then repeats to himself, but I got to get this rock to Jerusalem. But now it becomes a little more difficult because he's got to bring it to Jerusalem, but he's got to figure out a way to get workers to bring it for a minimal amount. So as the day is progressing, his position is becoming a little more difficult, meaning he's now narrowing himself into a corner. How's he going to get the rock? So the Midrash continues. Zimen lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hamisha Malachim Bidmut Bnei Adam. Option number 2. God commissions 5 angels that look like human beings, and they stand in front of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. So he sees them, he doesn't realize they're angels. It's almost like Avraham Avinu. When the 3 guys came to visit him, they were Malachim, but they looked like 3 Arabs. So these guys surface. He says, see, that's 5 more workers. Let me see if I can make a deal. So he says, Amar lahem atem ma'alim li even zot? Could you help me move the rock? Amru lo ten lanu hamisha silaim. Give us 5 coins. 5 coins? They just wanted 50 coins. Now ready to go, they're asking us for 5 coins. Okay, that's balash, it's worth it. So they tell him 5 coins. He thinks about 5 coins I can afford. Deal. But they tell him one condition. What's one condition? COD. No, it doesn't say that. The Midrash says, "Ubilvad shetiten yadecha ve'etzba'acha imanu." You got to help. We're not doing this alone. If you're willing to put your hands underneath the rock and help us, we'll do it. But if you're going to just give it to us, we're out. Fine. So the Midrash is a great ending to the story. It says, Natan yado ve'etzba'o imahem v'nimseu omdim betocheche Yerushalayim. All of a sudden, he put his hands on the rock, presto. All of a sudden, they find themselves in Jerusalem. Now, Rav Hanina ben Dosa realized that these were not regular guys. These guys must have been supernatural, angels, or just an experience that just place over here. So now it gets a little exciting. But angels or not, Rav Hanina ben Dosa wants to pay them. I mean, he did commit to them 5 coins. He takes the money out of his pocket. The Midrash says, Bikesh liten lahem secharam velo metzam. They disappeared. They went back. The story started to spread like wildfire throughout Jerusalem. Did you hear? Of Hanina ben Dosa, a flying rock, angels, they disappeared, he's there, back, forth. And the buzz was so prevalent that it even reached, the Midrash says, Lishkata Gazit. It reached the offices of the Supreme Court in Jerusalem. 70 rabbis sitting on the Temple Mount, their offices. All of a sudden the story comes to them. Rabbis, did you hear the story? So they summoned Rav Hanina ben Dosa. They said, Rabbi, unbelievable, miracle of miracles, Malachim, 5 of them no less, with the rock. So he says, well listen rabbis, I offered to pay them 5 coins, and they disappeared, so I like to make a donation. First of all, the rock is yours, and I'm giving the 5 coins as a nedabah. And of course the rabbis made a Misha Berach, and everybody lived happily ever after. That's the story. Now you say to yourself, okay, it's a very nice story. What are you getting all excited about, Rabbi? It's not any more or less exciting than any other stories in the Midrash. Makes a nice conversation. Maybe a good bedtime story. I see some of you falling asleep already. In any event, in this Midrash lies one of the secrets of life. And if we have the zechut tonight to uncover this one secret, this can alter lifestyles. This is an item that can change your life if we're able to uncover this mystery. What is this Midrash teaching us? This Midrash is teaching us the following lesson. Human beings have tremendous powers. Human beings have a tremendous amount of potential and a tremendous force and superhuman capabilities and abilities. But there is one thing that is able to create miracles. And if you know how to do it, it can happen to you as well. You don't have to be Rav Hanina ben Dosa. What ingredient did Rav Hanina ben Dosa and this midrash have that God sent down 5 angels to do the supernatural? What was the secret magic that he had to pull off this miracle? One item. It's called Ratzon. He had a will. Willpower. He had a desire. He wanted it. Hachamim are telling us in this midrash, if you will something and you want it so bad, then nothing will stand in your way. And your chances to succeed are very great. The Hachamim have a little quip. En davar omed b'fnei haratzon. Nothing stands in the way of a person's will. This is not something to be taken in an exaggerated form. The Hachamim spoke in very clear terms. Ratzon is impenetrable. It is a mighty force that is able to bring a person to success at whatever he puts his mind to. And the proof is this midrash. Rav Hanina ben Dosa said with complete resolution, this rock is going to Jerusalem. What's going to Yerushalayim? I'm not going to rest until I figure how to get this rock out. And he was so resolute in getting that rock to Jerusalem that God had no choice but to bring him solution, but to bring him a heavenly aid, because that's the rule. In English they say where there's a will, there's a way. This is a Jewish concept. It wasn't made up from Weight Watchers or some type of, even though it can apply to your diets as well. But he wanted it so badly that God said, Ratzon, we have to acquiesce. To the extent when Malachim appeared. But now it starts to become a little clearer, this midrash. What did the angels tell him? One condition. You have to help me. You have to help us. Why? The angels couldn't carry it alone? Now you understand. The whole reason why we came down is a product of your will. If you don't help us, so then your will is not part of the effect. And therefore we have to go back upstairs. So long as your hands are underneath, it is your will that's carrying us. And that's why when they disappeared, what did he do with the money? He said, I can't keep this money. He gave it right away to the Beit HaMikdash. Why? Because if he would have kept the money, he would have compromised his Ratzon. Then already it would show that it wasn't 100%. He kept the money for himself. He said, no, I wanted to bring this rock. I was willing to pay it. The money doesn't belong to me. You think this is an exaggeration? There was a rabbi called Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva at the age of 40 did not know Aleph Bet. Our children at the age of 3 knew more than Rabbi Akiva knew at 40. And he enrolled in the yeshiva. He enrolled himself into the pre-1A, into the kindergarten. And I could imagine the registration of the yeshiva. They were probably shocked. I'm sure he had to meet with the tuition committee first. And they, who are you? What are you? How many maids do you have? Etc. And after they harassed him, they said, what do you mean? Your father-in-law's Kalba Savua. He can afford it, but he disowned me. Well, that's your problem. After he finished with the tuition committee, they let him in. And now he's got to study. I ask you, maybe I'm not allowed to ask you this question, but if you were taking odds, what are the odds at that moment? Does Rabbi Akiva become the greatest rabbi of the generation? What are the odds? 1 in a million? If you're betting, don't bet. But if you're betting, I don't think Las Vegas would give odds on such a bet. Because to bet, it's always 1 in a million, 1 to 2 million. But you need one. I don't think there'll be one guy that will bet. Who's going to lose $1 even? Rabbi Akiva doesn't know Aleph Bet at 40. You're going to put $1 on the table and say, one day I bet he's going to be the greatest rabbi of the generation. Even tent him out to Moshe Rabbeinu? I wouldn't put $1 on the table for such a bet. But the odds change drastically if you know one fact. Rabbi Akiva was committed to become the greatest rabbi of the generation. At the age of 40 he said, I'm in this, I'm going to succeed at this, and he put his mind to it, and he said, whatever it's going to take, I'm going to do it. Now the odds are 2 to 1. Now it went from 1 in a million long shot, now it's a fair bet. Oh, there's Ratzon? Oh, now it's very, very possible. Now already Rabbi Akiva becomes a favorite. And what happened? He succeeded. I can't explain it logically, because you can't explain it logically. Obviously, supernatural things had to take over. Because in the course of 24 years, that means from 40 to 64, already he had 24,000 students. Something supernatural took place in those 24 years. Something that you cannot define. You cannot explain it. What angels, what happened to his IQ, his memory, I don't know what happened to Rabbi Akiva. But God stepped in and changed the normal course of history. Because of a man had a will. Listen to what I'm telling you. A scientist cannot explain or will not accept what I'm telling you here tonight. What are you talking about? Will, supernatural, angels, what? Fact. Guy's 40 years old, doesn't know Aleph Bet, there's nothing to do. But we believe that once a person extends himself to his limits, all of a sudden doors open up that weren't there before. Listen to what the doors were not there, but the doors are created after we have such a commitment. And therefore you cannot make a decision in the present state that you are, because the decision you're making, you're lacking the information of what could be. I'll explain it to you. I'll put it in more real terms. Bar Minan. There's a lady, this story is written in the newspapers. Accident, the car flips over, she's fine, she gets out. There's a baby in the car. The baby's alive, everybody's good, but the car's flipped over. The mother is 95 pounds. No muscles, no anything. And all of a sudden witnesses see the mother pushes the car, flips the car over, opens the door, takes out the baby. You've heard the story? There's 100 times the story. It's not a one-time history story. So they ask her, I had 3,000 pounds. She complains, lifting the groceries. And here she lifted a truck. What's the explanation? She might not have the same will to lift groceries like she has to save a child. So of course the scientists will come and say, no, Rabbi, you're making a mistake, that's adrenaline. She had an adrenaline flow, call it whatever you want. I'll tell you that God sent an angel called adrenaline, the malach adrenaline, that came down at that moment to her aid to give her supernatural powers. That's a malach. So it doesn't have to come in the form of you can come in the form of a chemical, it can come in the form of an enzyme. But why did it come out at that moment? What caused the adrenaline to be released? Ratzon. Now already you become superwoman. Things that you impossible to do become possible. Many of you follow the marathon, the New York City Marathon. what is it, 24 miles, 26 miles, through 5 boroughs. It's a very rigorous course. Obviously, people must train for this marathon for years, months. But you always see, you see a guy every year run it. The guy is in crutches. He can't walk. And you see the guy somehow, 3 days later, they show him crossing the finish line. And you think to yourself, how is it humanly possible? The guy can't walk. The guy's paralyzed. The guy has a handicap. How could he run a marathon? And the answer is again, Ratzon. Person has a will. He can tap into this resource. And he's able to do almost anything. I know myself. Maybe I shouldn't give myself an example, and maybe it's not a good example even. But I know during the course of the year, where I have to prepare the speech for Seudah Shlishit, most of the Shabbatot of the year we have to prepare a long speech for the Seudah. And you can imagine it's a pressure. You have to find the hidush and the explanation and the story and a statistic to make it a full package. But I cannot tell you the siyata d'shmaya, the divine assistance that not only I have, that any speaker or any rabbi that has in this profession at least, all of a sudden you'll open a book. Here, I was looking for a subject one week. And I had an idea that I saw in a book when I was in Hong Kong. And I said, how am I going to get this book? Where is this book? What an idea. I loved it. Haram. I should have copied it. Now I need it. And I went to 3 bookstores in the neighborhood. And I'm trying to find it. I left a message by Rabbi Me'oded in Hong Kong. Do you know the book? Do you have the book? He didn't get in touch with me. Sure enough, the next day, I walk into the house. My wife says, you have a package. A package? Who's it from? From Hong Kong. Hong Kong? I don't have business in Hong Kong. What are they sending me from Hong Kong? I open it up. 40 Sefarim. Rabbi Me'oded sends me a letter. I remember when you were in Hong Kong, you were enjoying the books in the library. So I bought you selected books. I hope you enjoy them. I said, I don't believe it. Yishtabach Shemo. Hey, I'm asking for the book. God sent it from Hong Kong. But only because I went to 6 stores, because I wanted it, because I needed it. Ratzon. It's illogical. But this is what happens. This is what happens if you put your mind to something. Now, of course, as a rabbi, I would tell you to use this principle in religion. To the young men that started the Daf Yomi program, studying 1 page of Talmud a day, 4 or 5 months ago, they said, Rabbi, we struggle to do 4 lines a day. Now you're demanding from us to read 2 sides a day. It's beyond us. We don't have the ability. And I told them over this midrash, I said, in Judaism, you can do anything you want. If you don't want to do it, that's another story, but you can. You have a right to say you don't want. I can't force you. But don't tell me you can't. If you will it, God will give you all of a sudden abilities that you didn't know you had. He'll give you strength that didn't exist before. And they started. And a month into the program, they say, we can do it, it's doable, it's possible. There's time for other things as well. Already they saw that they were living with such a limited horizon, a limited dreams, and now they expanded themselves. That's our problem. It's been said that Einstein only used a very small percentage of his brain. Now, I'm not saying necessarily used it for the right things, even that small percentage. But in the world of science, he's considered a very accomplished man. Theory of relativity, etc., bombs. And that's only a small percentage of his mind. So we didn't even begin. I always think about that myself. After we start a new project, I always think to myself, I said, if we were able to do this, why can't we do something else simultaneously? And if we could do 2 things, we could do 3 things. And all of a sudden, you start to realize that you can do it. It's just either laziness, or you just lack the desire, or you lack the resolution to do it. And then you see doors open up. Ask businessmen the miracles that happen in their businesses. Now, of course, it's all God. Don't get me wrong. It's all God. When Batya, the daughter of Paro, was in the Nile, she was bathing. And all of a sudden she saw a basket floating. Moshe Rabbeinu happened to be in the basket. She didn't know that, but she knew there must be a child in the basket. So she extended her hand, but her hand couldn't reach the basket. And she extended, and as far as she can reach. And then all of a sudden the Gemara says God made a miracle. Her hand extended. Extendo hand. 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever the Gemara says. 50 amot. Whatever the number is, not important. But her hand became larger than it was. And then she was able to grasp onto it. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz asked the obvious question. Zichrono Livracha. If I'm standing here and I want to get that Pepsi, do I go like this? Do I extend my hand out? I calculate right away. The Pepsi is 10 feet away. My hand is only 1 foot. So what are you even extending your hand for? And the explanation is she extended her hand because she said, listen, I'm only going to do as much as I could do. I can't get to it. As far as I can go is to extend my hand. She showed God at that moment her will and her sincere conviction how much she wanted to get that basket. That she even extended her hand as well. Hashem, I'm limited. God says, you're not limited. You made an effort, a serious effort, and you extended yourself as much as you can. Now you'll see God take over. And all of a sudden the angels come and make her hand large. And it was the will of Batya that saved Moshe Rabbeinu. Now again, go ask a doctor before that happens. Is it possible that a hand can extend? We're talking shtuyot. Don't extend your hand, don't do anything. When we were young, our parents used to read for us a fairy tale. The little engine that could. Maybe you remember it. It's a story about a train. It's going up the mountain. I haven't read it in a while. But I think the basic principle was, I think I can. So you know the story. That's exactly it. And all of a sudden it gets to the top of the mountain. So this story of Rav Hanina is our version of the little engine that could. The Havdil, of course. This is the original version. It's the concept that he wanted to get the stone, so he got the stone. There was a rabbi, the brother of the Gaon of Vilna, they called him Rav Zalman. There was once a sefer that he needed, but the sefer had fallen behind the bookshelf. He was an old man. All of a sudden the students see this old man with a long beard. He stands in front of the bookshelf. And he grabs the bookshelf and he lifts the bookshelf up. He moves it and he gets the sefer. He said, Hakam, what happened over here? Where did you muster this energy to pick up a bookshelf filled with books? He said, I needed that sefer. The answer to my question was in that book. Maybe there was 2 angels on the side of him. I don't know what happened, but he lifted the bookshelf. You have to try. You have to teach your children that they can do anything, they can conquer the world. They're destined for greatness. Everybody has greatness in them. Our problem in this generation is that we don't know our own powers. Our generation suffers low self-esteem, low self-worth. We don't believe we're capable. Everybody walks around, I can't, not for me, too hard. We don't realize we're bionic. We're supermen, we're superwomen. But we don't tap into it. And therefore we've resolved ourselves to mediocrity. Just to float by. Greatness is for Rav Hanina ben Dosai, greatness is for the other guy. It's not so. In this room alone, the capability and the potential is overwhelming if you put your mind to it. I once heard a chidush from the Gera Rabbi. I didn't hear it from him directly, but he said like this. You're familiar with the Gemara at the end of Sotah. Maya said 2.5 hours. What, 2 hours? Okay, fine. Maybe we'll have a break. We'll come back. The Gemara at the end of Sotah lists about 15 telltale signs of what's going to happen before Mashiach comes. If you have nothing to do one day, you're bored, open up a Gemara. The ladies could read this Gemara as well. It's a Mishnah. It's fascinating. It tells you this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And you'll see for yourself without even reading commentary, they all happened. I mean, clearly. 15 for 15. The end of the Mishnah writes the following. Ve'en lanu ela lehisha'en al avinu shebashamayim. And we have nobody but to rely on but God. Now, the rabbis grappled to understand what that line's doing at the end of this Mishnah. Is it just like an ending? At the end of the day, trust in God, everything will be okay. So the Ger Rebbe said, no. That's one of the predictions. What do you mean? How is that a prediction? We have nobody to rely on but God. That's a prediction? So he says yes. He says at the time of the Mashiach, the malady of the generation is going to be that everybody's going to walk around the streets and saying, I can't. They say, what do you mean you can't? I said, no, God will take care of it. Hashem Yerachem. They're going to use God as a cop-out. They're going to use God as an excuse. Hashem Yerachem. They're going to use faith as an excuse why they don't have to accomplish, why they don't have to do. How come you're not learning? Borei Olam, it's not for me. What Borei Olam? It's not Borei Olam's fault. How come you're not dressing modestly? God knows, very hard. No, it's not God's fault. Everybody's going to be paralyzed into inaction. And what's their excuse going to be? God, it's not God. We cannot use that as an excuse. Of course, everything is God. But that doesn't mean we should be passive. What, a person thinks he's going to become a Talmid Chacham just on faith? I have bitachon in God. The Ksot HaChoshen didn't become the Ksot HaChoshen on faith. It's because he put in his time and he learned and he studied. And the Netziv sat with his legs in freezing cold water every night so he doesn't fall asleep. And the Gaon of Vilna slept 2 hours a night in half-hour intervals. Coupled with faith in God, they became great people. Hakam Ezra'atiya used to spend nights in Parat Yosef crying in front of the Sefer Torah in order that he should understand an explanation in the Maharsha. And then he went back and broke his head to understand it. And then the next day in the Shiur, he delivered an explanation. And he said that this explanation came to me last night in a dream. The Gaon Maharsha appeared to me and told me exactly what he meant. But that's only after he toiled and cried and prayed and did, and he extended himself as far as he can go. Then the Maharsha came to him in a dream. What, you think it just happens? The guy opens the Tosafot, he doesn't understand Tosafot. Oh, I'll go to sleep tonight, he'll come to me in a dream. It's true, it doesn't work like this. In our generation, we're looking for the easy way out. Everything is hassle-free. In the yeshivas, they tell us, a guy wants to become the great rabbi of the generation in one night. And he wants to sleep 8 hours that night also. And it doesn't work that way. Rabbi Akiva put in his time. Commitment. He left his wife 24 years. Oh, God said there's a will, now you'll become great. So it's all dependent on us. Not to use En lanu lehisha'en ela avinu shebashamayim as an excuse. To me, this midrash is a motivator. The Gemara is telling you, the midrash is telling you could rub elbows with kings and even better with angels. And it's all dependent on you. Never be scared of a project. Never be scared of a mission. Nothing is insurmountable to the human being. Adam HaRishon, the midrash writes, God placed the whole world under his feet. The pasuk says in Tehillim this. Kol shata tahat raglav. The whole world God placed under Adam. I don't understand this that he literally did that. What do you mean? He took the whole world and folded it up into pieces? That doesn't make sense. The Midrash is not saying that. What the Midrash is saying there is, God told Adam HaRishon, you have dominion over the entire world. The world is under you. You can control it. You can succeed. You can overcome. You're on top. But the most important thing is you have to know it. Most people, especially outside of this room, do not know this secret, do not know this key ingredient. Yes, gentlemen, you could finish Shas if you want to. You could finish the Tanakh if you will it. You could be the best husbands and the best parents to your children if you will it. Don't settle for mediocrity. God will open up doors for you that did not exist, as I said, before you started. And you'll come and you'll tell stories. Rabbi, you're right. I started, all of a sudden this happened and that happened. Things that were not there before. Ladies as well. The potential that you have is not from this world. If a lady could lift a 3,000-pound car, what does that tell you about your ability and your strengths? If you put your mind to these great projects that you're involved in, never be intimidated of anything. The project should be intimidated of you. Because now it's coming face to face with a human being. And there's nothing more powerful. You have to recognize your greatness. You have to recognize your worth. You're not small. It's like a jet plane that can fly 800 miles an hour. And the pilot is cruising at 100 miles an hour. And you go into the cockpit, you say, don't you understand? You could pull the throttle down, it goes 800 miles an hour. Really? I didn't know. 30 years I'm flying. I thought it could go 150 miles an hour. And you'll start to see angels. You won't see physical angels. I'm not going to promise you that. But you'll see angels in different forms. And then you'll pray to God in Modim and you'll say, thank you, God. Thank you for the daily miracles that you do for me. And now you'll know what you're saying. Daily miracles. These are the daily miracles. The secret ingredient of the irresistible power of the human will. En davar omed b'fnei haratzon. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of work in front of you now. There's a lot of things that need to be accomplished. Our community has a lot of issues that have to be dealt with. If everybody would rise to the occasion and do what they have to do for themselves and the community, we could change the world. We have to have a conviction. Don't limit yourself. Never say I'm doing enough, because you could always do more. I once visited Rabbi Pardo in Israel, Alav Shalom. Rabbi Moshe Pardo he still has, it's not a yeshiva he built a city in the vicinity of Bnei Berak. You can't imagine that one man was able to build such a, it has its own zip code. Yeshivas, and buildings, and kitchens, and dormitories. How is it possible one man was able to do this? You have to live 1,000 years to put this together. He says, no. I did it in a relatively quick time. Siyata d'shmaya. I worked, I collected, I did. He tells me, guess how many eggs we have to peel a day in the kitchen? How many eggs? I'm 100, 1,000 eggs, more, 2,000 eggs, 8,000 eggs. I said, who's the poor lady that has to do that? I said, no, Hakam, we have machines. But you understand what I'm saying? You could build a city. One man built a city. Wait, is he better than us? He has more potential than us? I don't think so. The only difference is, he used it. He tapped into it. All of us are the same. You could be Rav Hanina ben Dosa, you could be Rabbi Moshe Pardo, you could be Rabbi Eli Mansour, and you could be Mr. Flan, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so. It's all the same. This is equal opportunity. God endowed this gift to every person. What a shame if you don't use it. If you didn't recognize that the power of the Jewish soul that's in you is a turbo power, and you were just, you were cruising. I wish you success on your new projects, on your new commitments, on your newfound ability, and your newfound secret, the secret of the human will. Thank you.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Rabbi for coming this evening. I'm sure the words that the Rabbi spoke penetrated Shamayim and is lifting my father's neshama into where we all want him to be. Thank you for coming. Thank you again, the Rabbi. It's a big zechut to have you here.